He's lying to you, Scylla. Javier's voice was low, a harsh scrape in the quiet of my office. He stood with his arms crossed over his chest, blocking the light from the window. He looked like a storm cloud in his dusty work clothes, and I wished he'd just go away. He's not, I said, my own voice tight. I kept my eyes on the grant application on my screen, but the words were just a blur. John is helping us. He believes in what we're doing. He's a billionaire. They don't believe in things, they buy them. What does he want? I finally looked at him, my best friend since we were kids, the man who helped me build this place from nothing. He wants to help kids, just like we do. You're just looking for a reason not to like him. Am I? Javier took a step closer. His shadow fell over my desk. Or, are you looking for a reason to? His words stung because they were true. I was. For the first time in 5 years, since my brother Michael was killed, I felt something other than the dull ache of just getting by. John Bernard did that. He walked into Michael's place, this community center built for my grief, and he saw me. Not the sad sister, not the charity case. Just me. And I was falling for him. I kissed the billionaire who was saving my brother's legacy, and I didn't regret it for a second. The fundraiser is in 2 weeks, Javi, I said, changing the subject. His donation could change everything. We could finally build that new wing. If it's real, he muttered, turning to leave. Just be careful. The door clicked shut behind him, and the silence he left behind was heavy. I leaned back in my chair, the squeak echoing in the empty room. Be careful.
It was all anyone ever told me.
Be careful with your heart. Be careful with your hope. It was exhausting. I thought back to the first day John came here. He wasn't what I expected. No expensive suit, no flashy watch. Just a simple dark shirt and pants. He had pale skin and eyes so serious, they seemed to hold the weight of the world. He didn't want a tour from me. He wanted to see the kids. I watched him from my office doorway as he sat on one of the tiny chairs in the art room, listening to a 6-year-old girl named Maya tell him a long, rambling story about her dog. He never once looked bored. He just listened, his focus entirely on her. That's when the first crack appeared in the wall I'd built around my heart. Hey, my friend, hope you're doing well. Drop a comment and let me know how you're feeling about the story so far and where you're watching from. Some stories are too close to my heart to share on YouTube. I send those, along with little life lessons and surprises, to my email circle. If you'd like to be part of it, you can join with the link in the description. Later that week, he found me locking up for the night. The sky was a soft, bruised purple, and the streetlights were just starting to flicker on.
Priscilla, he said.
My name sounded different when he said it.
Softer.
Mr. Bernard. I replied, my fingers fumbling with the keys. John, please. He stood a few feet away, his hands in his pockets. I was impressed today. What you've built here, it's important. It was my brother's dream, I said, the words coming out automatically. I'd said them 1,000 times to 1,000 potential donors. But with John, it felt different. I wanted him to know. He always wanted a safe place for the neighborhood kids. He's the reason I do this. John's expression shifted. A flicker of something dark, something painful, crossed his face before he smoothed it away. I thought it was empathy. I'm sorry for your loss. It was a hit and run, I heard myself say. The words tumbled out before I could stop them. I never talked about it. 5 years ago, they never found the driver. He just left Michael on the side of the road. A car drove past, its headlights sweeping over John's face. He looked wrecked, utterly destroyed. For me, for a stranger's pain. He took a small step closer, his gaze so intense it felt like he could see right through me, into all the broken parts one kept hidden. He would be proud of you, John said, his voice thick with an emotion I couldn't name. And that was it. That was the moment I let him in. That memory faded, and I was back in my office, the grant application still mocking me. I pushed it all away, Javier's warning, my own doubts, and focused on the feeling I got when I was with John. The feeling of being whole. Last night, after we finalized the plans for the fundraiser, he'd walk me to my car. But when we got there, We just stood under the humming orange glow of the parking lot lights, not wanting the night to end. I shouldn't feel this way, I'd whispered, more to myself than to him. What way? He asked, his voice a low rumble.
Happy.
He reached out and gently touched my cheek, his thumbs stroking my skin. My breath hitched. You deserve to be happy, Priscilla. And then he leaned in and kissed me. It wasn't a hungry, demanding kiss. It was soft and careful, and full of a quiet desperation that matched my own. It felt like coming home after a long, long time. It felt like hope. When he pulled away, he rested his forehead against mine. Let me drive you home, he murmured. My car is just over there. I'd let him. We'd sat in his old, beautifully restored car, the leather seats cool against my skin. We didn't talk much. We just listened to the quiet engine and let the feeling of that kiss settle between us. When he dropped me off, I practically floated to my door. Now, a frantic energy buzzed under my skin. I had to see him. I grabbed my purse and my keys, my heart thumping with a giddy rhythm. I needed to feel that hope again, to prove Javier wrong. I drove to his office tower, my mind racing. I'd tell him I had an update on the fundraiser. A stupid excuse, but I didn't care. He met me in the lobby, a surprised but warm smile on his face. Everything okay? Perfect, I breathed. Can we just go for a drive? His smile widened. Of course. We walked to the parking garage, to that same vintage car from last night. He opened the passenger door for me, a perfect gentleman. As I slid into the seat, my purse slipped from my lap, spilling its contents onto the floor. My keys, my wallet, my phone. Oh, shoot, I'm so sorry, I said, flustered. Don't worry about it. John chuckled, leaning down to help me. I reached under the seat, my fingers searching for my keys in the darkness. They brushed against the carpet, then against something small, cool, and metallic. I wrapped my hand around it and pulled it out. It was a single silver cufflink, square, with an intricate letter B carved in the center. It was old, the silver tarnished in the deep grooves of the design. And my blood ran cold. An image flashed in my mind, so clear it was like a photograph. My brother, Michael, sitting on my bedroom floor years ago, a glossy magazine spread open between us. He was pointing to a picture of a man in a crisp suit. See this, Scylla? Michael had said, his voice full of awe. That's old money. That cufflink has been in the Bernard family for 100 years. Can you imagine? I was holding it. I was holding the Bernard family cufflink in my hand, inside the car belonging to John Bernard. The man who looked at me with haunted eyes. The man who seemed to understand my grief so perfectly. The man who kissed me and made me feel alive again. The man who killed my brother. The metal felt icy against my palm, a cold piece of a nightmare. My fingers clenched around it so tightly the sharp edges dug into my skin. The air in the car suddenly felt thick, too heavy to breathe. I couldn't swallow. I couldn't think. All I could see was that magazine picture, Michael's smiling face, his finger pointing. That's old money, Scylla. Find something. John's voice was warm, a soft sound that now grated against my ears like nails on a chalkboard. I snatched my hand back from under the seat, shoving the cufflink deep into my pocket. My other hand scrambled on the floor, finding my keys. The metallic jingle was loud in the sudden silence. Just my keys, I managed to say. My voice was a thin, shaky thing I didn't recognize. I avoided his eyes, focusing on gathering my wallet and phone, my movements clumsy and stiff. He laughed a little. Good. Wouldn't want you to be stranded. He started the car. The quiet hum of the engine, which had felt so peaceful last night, now sounded like a ticking clock, counting down the seconds of my life with my brother's killer. He pulled out of the parking garage, and the city lights blurred past the window. Each one was a flash of memory. Michael teaching me to ride a bike under streetlights, just like these. Michael carrying me home on his back after I twisted my ankle. Michael, lying on the side of a dark road. John glanced over at me, a small frown on his face. You're quiet. Everything okay? I forced my lips into a smile that felt like cracking glass. Just tired. Long day. We don't have to go for a drive, he said, his voice full of a fake concern that made my stomach turn. I can take you straight home. No, I said, the word coming out sharper than I intended. I needed this. I needed to sit next to him, to feel the vibration of the car he was driving, the car that might be the car. I needed to burn this feeling of betrayal into my memory so I wouldn't forget, so I wouldn't be fooled by his gentle eyes or his soft voice ever again. A drive is fine. It's perfect. I stared out the window, watching the world go by, my hand in my pocket, clutching the piece of silver that had just destroyed everything. I didn't go home. The moment John dropped me off, I got into my own car and drove to the one place that felt like an anchor in a storm, Michael's place. The lights were off, the building dark and silent. But I knew Javier would be there. He was always there in his little workshop in the back, fixing a broken chair or building a new bookshelf. I found him hunched over a small table, carefully sanding a piece of wood. The air smelled of sawdust and sweat. He looked up when I came in, his weary expression changing to concern when he saw my face. Scylla? What is it? What's wrong? He stood up, wiping his hands on his jeans. I didn't say anything. I just walked over and opened my palm, showing him the cufflink. It glinted under the single bare bulb hanging from the ceiling. Javier stared at it, then up at my face. His jaw tightened. Where did you get this? In his car. The words were barely a whisper. It was under the passenger seat. His whole body went still. He didn't say, I told you so. He didn't have to. The grim understanding in his eyes said it all. He reached out, not to take the cufflink, but to gently wrap his fingers around my wrist. His hand was warm and calloused, a complete contrast to the cold metal I was still holding. It's a Bernard family heirloom, I explained, my voice hollow. Michael showed it to me once, years ago, in a magazine. He said it was over 100 years old. Javier swore a low, vicious sound. He finally looked at the cufflink again, his eyes narrowed. This isn't proof, Scylla. Not the kind that matters. I know, I said, a hot tear finally escaping and sliding down my cheek. But I know, in here. I touched my chest. I know it was him. The man who listened to little Maya's stories about her dog. The man who kissed me with such desperate hope.
It was all a lie.
A performance to ease a guilty conscience. What are you going to do? Javier asked, his voice steady. He was my rock. He was always my rock. I remembered something Michael told me when we were teenagers. We were fixing his old car and my hand slipped and I cut my knuckle open. I started crying, more from frustration than pain. He stopped what he was doing and grabbed a rag to wrap my hand. Hey, he'd said, looking me right in the eye. Asterisk, it's okay to get hurt. It's not okay to do nothing about it. You get mad. Then you get smart. Asterisk. I looked at Javier, my own eyes hardening. The tears were gone. I'm going to get smart, I said. The fundraiser is in 2 weeks. His name is all over it. He's going to be there, front and center, playing the part of the city's savior. You can't be around him, Javier said, his grip on my wrist tightening. It's not safe. It's the only way, I insisted, pulling my hand away. He thinks I'm falling for him. He thinks I'm just some grieving girl he can fix with his money. I'm going to use that. I'm going to play the part. I'm going to get close to him, and I'm going to find the proof we need, Javier. I'm going to make him pay for what he did to Michael. A new kind of silence settled between us. It wasn't a comfortable one. It was heavy with unspoken things, with the danger of what I was planning. You won't be alone in this, he said finally, his voice a low promise. I'm with you, whatever you need. The next day, my phone buzzed with a text from John. Asterisk, thinking of you. Can we have dinner tonight? We need to finalize the seating chart for the gala, asterisk. My hands trembled as I typed my reply. I'd love that. I met him at a quiet restaurant. He stood when I walked in, a real smile on his face that made me want to scream. He pulled out my chair for me. He asked about my day. He was the perfect gentleman, the perfect man. A monster in a well-fitting disguise. You seem better today, he said after we ordered. You were so quiet in the car last night. I was worried. Just tired. I lied, taking a sip of water. Everything's been a little overwhelming. In a good way, I added quickly. Because of you. Because of everything you're doing for the center. His expression softened. That sad, haunted look was back in his eyes. What you're doing for the center is what matters, Priscilla. Honoring your brother, that's a beautiful thing. The knife twisted in my gut. He was the best person I knew, I said, forcing myself to meet his gaze. He believed everyone deserved a second chance. I watched him closely, looking for a flinch, a crack in his mask. Something flickered in his eyes. A deep, gut-wrenching pain. He thought I was offering him forgiveness without even knowing it. Some mistakes, he started, his voice thick. He cleared his throat. Some mistakes don't deserve one. He looked down at his hands, and in that moment, he looked broken. Not like a monster, but like a man crushed by the weight of a terrible secret. For a split second, a horrible, traitorous part of me felt pity for him. The part of me that had kissed him, that had felt hope with him. I killed it. I pushed it down and buried it deep. Michael didn't get a second chance. He got left on the pavement. This man, John Bernard, didn't deserve my pity. He deserved justice. I reached across the table and placed my hand on his. His skin was cold. Well, I said, forcing another smile. I'm glad you're on our side. He looked up, his eyes meeting mine. He squeezed my hand, a flicker of that same hope I once felt now shining in his gaze. He thought this was a new beginning. He had no idea it was the beginning of his end. The 2 weeks before the fundraiser were a special kind of torture. John and I were together almost constantly. We sat in my small office, heads bent over seating charts. We walked through the half-finished new wing, his hand occasionally brushing my back as he pointed out where a new wall should go. Every time he smiled at me, a genuine, hopeful smile, my stomach would clench with guilt and rage. It was a poison cocktail, and I was drinking it every single day. He was so easy to be around. He'd bring me coffee in the morning. He remembered that I liked the little corner bakery, the one that made the lemon scones Michael used to love. He listened. He asked questions about the kids at the center, remembering their names, their stories. He was weaving himself into the fabric of my life, making it harder and harder to remember that my only goal was to rip him out of it. Javier was my lifeline. We'd meet late at night in his workshop, the smell of sawdust a welcome change from the faint, clean scent of John's cologne. You're getting too close, Scylla, he'd say, his voice rough with worry. He never looked at me, just kept his focus on whatever piece of furniture he was mending. It's the only way, I'd repeat, my voice sounding thin even to my own ears. The gala is our only chance to expose him in front of everyone he's trying to fool. And what about the center? He asked one night, finally stopping his work to look at me. He pulls his money. We close the doors. Is your revenge worth that? His question hung in the air, heavy and sharp. I hated that he was right to ask it. A few days later, I found out just how right he was. I was walking past the main hall when I heard Maya's mother talking to one of the other parents. Her voice was thick with tears, but they were happy tears. It was a miracle, she was saying. An anonymous friend of the center paid our rent for the whole year. We were a week from being on the street. I felt my steps slow. I knew, with a certainty that made me feel sick, who that anonymous friend was. It wasn't a check written to Michael's place. It was a quiet act of kindness, done with no expectation of praise. It was a secret, just like his crime. He was patching up the world one broken family at a time, trying to buy back his own soul. And my plan to destroy him would also destroy this safety net he was creating. It would hurt people like Maya. The stakes were no longer just about Michael. They were about all the kids Michael had wanted to save. The weekend before the gala, John called me. I need to get out of the city before the chaos of next week, he said. And I need to pick up my grandfather's suit for the event. It's at my family's old house a couple of hours away.
Come with me.
We can have one quiet day. My first thought was no. My second was that this was an opportunity. A house he didn't live in all the time would be less secure. Maybe there would be something there. Papers. Files. Anything. I'd like that, I said, my voice smooth as glass. The house wasn't some giant mansion. It was an old stone house, covered in ivy, set back from the road. It felt quiet and a little sad. Inside, everything was covered in white sheets, like sleeping ghosts. My parents haven't lived here in years, he said, his voice echoing in the large entryway. I just keep it for memories, I guess. The suit is upstairs. I'll just be a minute. As soon as he was gone, my heart started pounding. I slipped into a room off the hall. It was a study. A large wooden desk sat in the center of the room, one of its drawers slightly open. My hand shook as I pulled it. It was full of old pens and paper clips. I tried the others. All locked. My eyes scanned the room, landing on a small wooden box on a bookshelf. It wasn't fancy, but it had a small, tarnished lock. I grabbed a heavy letter opener from the desk and wedged it into the lock. I pushed. The old wood splintered, and the lock popped open. I lifted the lid, expecting, I don't know what, a written confession, old car keys. But there was none of that. Inside, there were just a few papers and a single, faded photograph. I picked up the picture. It was of a young woman, maybe a teenager, with John's serious eyes. She was lying in a hospital bed, looking pale and thin, but she was smiling. I turned it over. On the back, in faint blue ink, was a date. My breath caught in my throat. It was the date Michael died. My fingers trembled as I picked up the papers. They weren't legal documents. They were medical records. They belonged to a girl named Eleanor Bernard. They detailed a history of severe asthma. And they described, in cold, clinical terms, a fatal asthma attack on the same night my brother was killed. I was wondering where you went. John's voice made me jump so hard the papers scattered to the floor. I spun around. He was standing in the doorway, holding an old suit bag. He wasn't angry. His eyes were fixed on the photo in my hand, and his face was a mask of grief, so profound it seemed to suck all the air out of the room. He looked defeated. Broken. That was my sister, Eleanor, he said, his voice barely a whisper. He walked slowly into the room and knelt down, not looking at me, just gathering the papers I had dropped. She was younger than me. That night, her inhaler wasn't working. We were miles from a hospital. I drove. I just drove. He looked up at me then, and his eyes were hollow. I was looking at her. She was making this sound, this awful sound, like she couldn't get any air. I wasn't watching the road. I hit something. A thud. I thought. I glanced in the mirror, and I thought I saw someone stand up. I convinced myself it was okay, because she was dying next to me. My sister was dying. He stood up, clutching the papers in his hand. I got her to the emergency room, but it was too late. She was gone an hour later. I didn't just take your brother that night, Priscilla. I lost my sister, too. The truth crashed over me. It wasn't a clean, simple crime. It was a tangled wreck of panic and tragedy. He didn't leave Michael on the road out of coldness. He did it because his own world was ending in the passenger seat right next to him. His secret philanthropy, his haunted eyes, his quiet support for a place born from grief. It wasn't a guilty conscience trying to buy forgiveness. It was a shared one. He was living in a place of loss, just like me. He took a shaky breath. I found out about your brother the next day. I should have come forward. I know that, but it felt monstrous. To connect my sister's last moments to another family's first moments of pain. To make her part of it. So I hid. And I've been hiding ever since. I stood there, frozen, the cufflink in my pocket suddenly feeling like it weighed 1,000 pounds. My neat, simple plan of righteous justice had just shattered into a million complicated pieces. The man in front of me wasn't the monster I had built in my head.
He was just a man.
A man who had made a terrible, unforgivable mistake in the middle of his own nightmare. The fundraiser was in 6 days, and I had no idea what to do. The drive back to the city was the longest 2 hours of my life. The silence in the car was a living thing, thick and heavy between us. I stared out the passenger window, watching the trees blur into a dark green wall, but I didn't see them. I saw a girl in a hospital bed. I saw a car on a dark road. I saw my brother's face, smiling in the rear-view mirror of my memory. John kept his hands tight on the steering wheel, his knuckles white. He didn't try to explain more. He didn't try to apologize. He just drove, his eyes fixed on the road ahead, as if he was afraid to look away for even a second. The weight of his confession, of his sister's name, filled the small space, pushing out all the air, all my anger. My plan for revenge felt like a child's drawing now, simple, black and white, and completely wrong. The world was all gray. My hand rested on my purse, where the photo of Eleanor was tucked safely inside my wallet. It felt warm, like a secret I was keeping for him. When he finally pulled up to my curb, he cut the engine, and the silence got even louder. "Priscilla," he started, his voice rough. He still wouldn't look at me. "The fundraiser, you don't have to. We can cancel everything. I'll understand." "No," I said, surprising myself. My voice was steady. "We can't cancel it. The kids need it. Michael's place needed it. Maybe I needed it too."
A deadline.
A final act. I finally turned to look at him. His pale skin looked almost translucent under the streetlights. The haunted look in his eyes wasn't just guilt anymore. It was grief. A grief I knew so well it felt like my own reflection. "I'll see you tomorrow," I said, and got out of the car before he could say another word. I didn't go inside. I walked the 2 blocks to the community center, to Javier's workshop. He was waiting. I knew he would be. The light was on, spilling a yellow rectangle onto the dark pavement of the alley. He was sweeping up sawdust, the rhythmic scrape, scrape, scrape of the broom, the only sound. He stopped when he saw me in the doorway. "Well," he asked, leaning the broom against a workbench. "Did you find anything?" I thought of the medical files, the photograph, the story of 2 siblings in a car on the worst night of their lives. A story that was too fragile, too complicated to share under the harsh glare of this single light bulb. It felt like John's secret to keep, not mine to tell. Not yet.
No, primelit.
The word tasted like ash in my mouth. Nothing. The house was empty. Javier's eyes narrowed. He could always tell when I was lying. He crossed his arms, his dark brown skin pulling tight over his muscles. "So that's it? The plan's off." "No," I said again, more firmly this time. My heart was pounding. Why was I protecting him? "The plan is not off. The gala is in 6 days. Nothing has changed. Something's changed, Scylla." He took a step closer, his gaze searching my face. "You've changed. He's getting to you." "He's not getting to me," I snapped, my voice sharp with a defensiveness I hated. "I'm just being careful. I'm doing what Michael would want. I'm being smart." I turned and left before he could see the lie in my eyes. Walking away from him felt like walking away from a part of myself, the part that was sure, the part that knew what was right. The next few days were a blur of controlled chaos. Michael's place buzzed with activity. Volunteers streamed in and out, hanging decorations, setting up tables. And John was there for all of it. He wasn't hiding in an office. He was on his hands and knees, helping a group of kids paint a giant banner that read, "Welcome." I watched him get blue paint on his cheek and not even notice. I saw him listen, really listen, when the kids talked to him. He was good. He was kind. He was my brother's killer. I lived with those 3 facts warring inside me every second. Javier was a constant, silent presence in the background. He'd watch John. Then he'd watch me, his expression unreadable, his disappointment a physical weight in the room. 2 days before the gala, Javier cornered me in my office. He shut the door behind him and tossed a folded piece of paper onto my desk. It was a photocopy, grainy and dark. "I went down to the county records office," he said, his voice low and urgent. "Pulled the original police report from that night. The one they never showed you, because you were family." My hands trembled as I unfolded it. It was full of police jargon I didn't understand, but one sentence was circled in red ink. "Witness statement from passing motorist reports vehicle matching description fleeing the scene at a high rate of speed. No brake lights observed."
No brake lights.
He hadn't even slowed down. He hadn't hesitated. He hadn't glanced in his mirror and seen someone stand up. He had just fled. John's story, the one that had broken my heart in that dusty old house, shattered. He hadn't told me the whole truth. He had told me a softer version, a story designed to make me pity him. The cold anger I had been suppressing came roaring back, icy and pure. "He lied to me," I whispered. "Of course he lied to you," Javier said, his voice laced with a bitter sort of triumph. "That's what men like him do. Now, are you going to finish this, or are you going to let him get away with it?" I folded the paper and put it in my pocket. It felt heavier than the cufflink ever had. The night of the gala, the center was transformed. Twinkling lights were strung from the ceiling, and the sound of laughter and soft music filled the hall we had built from scratch. I stood backstage, looking through a crack in the curtain. The room was filled with the city's most important people, all here because of John Bernard. My stomach was in knots. John came up behind me, his hand gentle on my elbow. He was wearing a classic black suit, the one he said belonged to his grandfather. "You look beautiful, Priscilla," he said softly. I was wearing a simple dark blue dress. I felt like a fraud. "You ready for this?" I asked, my voice tight. He looked out at the crowd, then back at me. The trust in his eyes was a physical blow. "I told you, whatever you decide to do, I'll understand. This is your night. This is for Michael." He thought I was deciding whether or not to be with him. He had no idea I was deciding whether or not to destroy him. A stage manager touched my arm. "5 minutes, Miss Smith." My heart hammered against my ribs. In my pocket, my fingers found the cold, sharp edges of the silver cufflink. In my other pocket, I could feel the crisp fold of the police report. I had the lie he told me, and I had the truth Javier found. I had to walk out onto that stage, stand at that microphone, and tell a story. I just didn't know which one it would be. The short walk from the curtain to the podium felt like miles. Every step was heavy. The air was thick with the scent of flowers and expensive perfume, and it made me feel like I was suffocating. Hundreds of faces turned toward me, a blur of strangers and supporters. In the front row, John sat perfectly still, his eyes locked on mine. He wasn't afraid. He was waiting for his sentence. In the back of the room, near the exit, Javier stood with his arms crossed. He wasn't waiting. He was demanding. His dark eyes were burning a hole through me, urging me on. "Finish this." I gripped the sides of the wooden podium, my knuckles turning white. The police report felt like a hot coal in my pocket. "No brake lights observed," a lie. A lie told to me by the man who held my dying sister, or a lie told to me by my best friend. Who was the monster? The man who panicked in a moment of unimaginable horror, or the man who used my grief as a weapon? I looked at John's face, at the pain etched around his eyes, a pain that mirrored my own. I saw the night he told me about Eleanor. I saw him on his hands and knees with the kids, blue paint on his cheek. I thought of Michael. "It's okay to get hurt," he'd told me. Asterisk, it's not okay to do nothing about it. You get mad. Then you get smart. Asterisk, for weeks, I thought being smart meant getting revenge. But standing here, with the power to ruin a man who was trying so desperately to rebuild himself, I realized that wasn't smart. It was just easy. It was just more pain. I leaned into the microphone. 5 years ago, I began, my voice shaking slightly. I lost my brother. And for 5 years, my grief has been simple. There was a good person, my brother. And there was a bad person, a faceless driver, who took him from me. It was easy to build my life around that simple story. I saw Javier nod slightly from the back. This was what he wanted. But life isn't simple. I continued, my voice growing stronger. I looked right at John. People aren't simple. They are not just one thing. They are not just the worst mistake they ever made. Michael's place was built to give kids a second chance. And I have come to believe that we must extend that grace to everyone. To believe in redemption. Not because people deserve it, but because we deserve to be free from the hate that holds us back. The room was silent. John's shoulders, which had been tense and high, finally relaxed. A tear slid down his cheek, and he didn't wipe it away. In the back, Javier's face was stone. I hadn't given him the blood he wanted. I had chosen mercy. As soon as I stepped off the stage, my legs felt like they would give out. John was there in an instant, his hands on my arms, steadying me. He led me into the quiet of my office, away from the applause that felt hollow and wrong. "Priscilla," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. He gently touched my face, his thumb brushing away a tear I didn't even know I'd shed. "Thank you. You gave me a gift I will never be able to repay. But I'm going to try. Tomorrow, I'm going to the police. I'm going to tell them everything. The truth. But I wanted you to know first. I love you. I know it's impossible, but I do." He leaned in and kissed me. It wasn't like our first kiss, full of hope and questions. This one was full of desperation and relief and a deep, aching sadness. It was a goodbye and a hello all at once. For a single, perfect moment, I let myself kiss him back, letting his impossible love wash over me. It felt like drowning. The door flew open, slamming against the wall. Javier stood there, his chest heaving, his face a mask of fury. "Are you kidding me?" he snarled, his eyes spitting fire first at John, then at me. "After everything he did, you're just going to stand there and kiss him?" "Javi, please," I started. "It's not that simple." "It is that simple," he shouted, stepping into the room. He was shaking with a rage I had never seen before. "He killed Michael. He left him on the road to die. I should know, Scylla. I was there. I saw the whole thing." The world stopped. The sound in the room, my own heartbeat, John's breathing, it all just ceased. My mind snagged on his words. Asterisk, I was there. I saw the whole thing. Asterisk, what? I whispered. The word was small, fragile. "I was driving home from that late job," he said, his voice dropping, becoming intense, urgent. "I was a few cars back. I saw his car swerve. I saw him hit Michael. I saw him drive away, Scylla.
No brake lights.
Nothing. He never even slowed down. He was the passing motorist, the anonymous witness from the report. For 5 years, he had let me believe the driver was a stranger, a ghost. He had stood by my side at the funeral, holding me while I cried, all while holding this secret. He knew. The entire time, he knew. You were there? My voice cracked. You were there, and you never told me? I was protecting you, he insisted, taking a step toward me. John stood between us, a silent, stunned statue. No, I said, the pieces clicking into place with sickening speed. His constant warnings about John. His discovery of the police report. His pushing, always pushing me toward revenge. No, you weren't protecting me. You let me grieve a ghost for 5 years. Why, Javier? Why? Because I love you, he yelled, the words finally exploding out of him. I've always loved you. And then this guy shows up, the man who destroyed your life, and you just fall into his arms? I couldn't let that happen. I had to make you see him for the monster he is. The truth was uglier than I could have ever imagined. My quest for justice hadn't been mine at all. It was his. He had used my love for my brother as a tool to get what he wanted. The story of my life for the past 5 years, the story of a sister honoring her brother, was a lie. I had been a puppet, and Javier, my best friend, my rock, had been pulling the strings. John finally moved, his face pale with shock. The witness report, it was you? He asked, his voice a disbelieving rasp. You're damn right it was me, Javier spat. But the brake lights, I did brake. John said, looking at me, his eyes pleading. After the impact. I know I did. I saw. He's lying, Scylla.
Javier shouted.
But I wasn't listening anymore. I looked from John, the man who killed my brother in a moment of tragic panic, to Javier, the man who had systematically lied to me every single day for 5 years, poisoning my heart with a carefully crafted hatred. One had taken my brother. The other had taken my soul. They were two sides of the same monstrous coin. Get out, I whispered, the words like acid on my tongue. Scylla. Javier started, his face crumbling as he finally saw what he had done. Both of you, I said, my voice rising to a raw scream that tore from my throat. Get out. I didn't watch them leave. I just stared at the empty space where my life used to be. I was utterly and completely alone. I had nothing left. The echo of my own scream was the last sound I remembered. After that, there was only a humming silence, the kind that follows a loud explosion. I don't remember walking home.
I don't remember the drive.
I only remember standing in the middle of my small living room, the blue gala dress feeling like a costume from someone else's life. The cufflink and the folded police report were still in my pockets, too small, heavy anchors pulling me down. I took them out and placed them on the coffee table. The lie and the tragedy sitting side by side. For 5 years, I had a clear enemy, a faceless man in a fast car. Now, the faces were all I could see. John's, full of a grief that matched my own. Javier's, twisted by a love so possessive it had become a cage. Michael's, smiling at me in my memories, a ghost I no longer knew how to honor. I sank onto the couch and watched the sun come up, the pale light creeping across the floor, and I felt nothing at all. The next few weeks passed in a gray fog. I went to work. I signed papers. I smiled at the kids. I was a machine performing the tasks it was built for. My phone buzzed constantly for the first few days. Dozens of calls from John. Hundreds of texts from Javier. I deleted them all without reading them. I changed my number. I built a wall of silence around myself, and in the quiet, I tried to work. Michael's place was the only thing that made sense. The laughter of the children, the smell of paint and chalk, the steady rhythm of a day dedicated to helping others. It was a fragile piece, a lie I told myself every morning just to get out of bed. I was fine. I was moving on. But every time I saw a vintage car, my breath would catch. Every time a volunteer with dark, kind eyes would smile at me, my stomach would twist. The ghosts of John and Javier were everywhere. One Tuesday morning, I was in the office trying to make the budget numbers work when one of the teachers, a sweet woman named Maria, poked her head in. Her face was pale. "Priscilla," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "You need to see this." She pointed to the small television in the corner of the room. It was on the local news. And there was John's face, not smiling from a magazine cover, but grim and tired in a press photo. The headline at the bottom of the screen read, "Billionaire John Bernard confesses to 5-year-old fatal hit and run." My coffee cup slipped from my fingers, shattering on the floor. He'd done it. He had actually done it. The reporter's voice droned on, talking about the death of Michael Smith, the beloved community leader. They mentioned Michael's place, flashing pictures of the gala, of me on stage. My private nightmare was now a public spectacle. The phone on my desk began to ring, and I knew, with a sinking certainty, that it would not stop. That night, Javier was waiting for me in the parking lot. He stood by my car, blocking my way, looking thinner than I'd ever seen him, his eyes sunk deep in his head. "Scylla, please," he said, his voice raw. "Just talk to me." "There's nothing to talk about," I said, my own voice flat and cold. I tried to walk around him, but he stepped in front of me again. "I was wrong," he said, the words rushing out. "I know that. I was crazy. But I did it because I couldn't stand watching him get close to you. He doesn't deserve you. Not after what he did. And you do." The question was quiet, but it hit him like a physical blow. "You think you deserve me, Javi? You watched me cry for 5 years. You held me at my brother's funeral, and you knew who did it. You knew. You used Michael's memory to try and poison me against him. That's not love. I don't know what that is, but it's not love." "I can fix this," he pleaded, reaching for my arm. I flinched back like he was fire. "No, you can't," I said, the emptiness inside me finally hardening into something solid. Anger. Cold and clear. "You didn't just lie about John. You lied about Michael. You made his death into your ugly little game. You are not the man I thought you were. We are not friends.
We're not anything."
I finally looked him in the eye, and I made sure he saw the absolute nothingness I felt for him. "Stay away from me," I said. "And stay away from this place." I walked away, and for the first time, I didn't look back to see if he was following. I had cut the final cord to my past, and I was adrift. The fallout at the center was worse than I could have imagined. Parents started pulling their kids from the programs. A few of our biggest local sponsors called to say they were reevaluating their position. The name Michael's Place was now forever linked to the name John Bernard, his killer. My attempt at showing mercy on that stage was being twisted into something ugly. Was I defending him? Was I in a relationship with my brother's killer? The questions were whispered in the hallways and shouted at me by reporters who now camped outside the center's doors. I was trapped. If I condemned John, I confirmed that our biggest benefactor was a monster and the center would collapse. If I said nothing, I was seen as a traitor to my own brother's memory. There was no way out. 2 days later, I was called into an emergency meeting with the community center's board of directors. They were a small group of neighborhood leaders who had helped me from the very beginning. They sat around the conference table, their faces grim, avoiding my eyes. It was Mr. Henderson, the oldest member, who finally spoke. "Priscilla," he said, his voice full of a weary sadness. "We love you. You know that. What you have built here, it's a miracle. It is Michael's legacy." He paused, taking a deep breath. "But the board has voted. With the scandal with your personal connection to Mr. Bernard, we feel it's in the center's best interest for you to step down as director." The words didn't feel real. They were just sounds hanging in the air.
Step down. Leave.
This place was my life. It was all I had left of my brother, of myself. "This is my brother's center," I whispered, my voice breaking. "I built this. And we will always be grateful," a woman named Sarah said gently. "But the mission has to come first. The kids have to come first. Right now, you're standing in the way of that mission." I looked at their faces, these people I had trusted, these neighbors I had served, and I saw it. They were scared, and they were right. As long as I was there, the shadow of John Bernard, of my impossible choice, would hang over everything. My pain was a disease, and it was infecting the one place I had created to be safe. To save Michael's place, I had to leave it. I had lost my brother, my best friend, and the man I had started to love. And now, I was losing the last piece of my heart. I stood up, pushed my chair in, and walked out the door, leaving my brother behind for the second time. I didn't leave my small house for a week. The world was a muffled noise outside my windows. The news was a poison I refused to drink. I kept the TV off, the radio silent. I sat on my couch and traced the patterns in the cheap rug, letting the hours bleed into one another until day and night were just different shades of gray. I had nothing left to lose, and the emptiness was so vast it felt like a new kind of gravity, pinning me in place. My life was a building that had been condemned, and I was just a squatter in the ruins. Then one morning, I ran out of coffee. A simple, stupid problem. I had to go outside. The walk to the corner store was like walking on a new planet. People stared. I could feel their eyes on me, their whispers like tiny, sharp insects crawling on my skin. In the store, the owner, a man who had known me since I was a girl, couldn't quite meet my gaze as he handed me my change. On a rack by the counter, a newspaper showed John's face, haggard and pale, under a bold headline, "Billionaire Killer Pleads Guilty." The story mentioned a sentencing hearing scheduled for the following week.
It also mentioned me.
The grieving sister, the former director, the scorned lover. They had painted me in a dozen different colors, and none of them were true. That night, a woman called. She was John's lawyer. Her voice was professional, clipped, but I could hear a layer of exhaustion underneath. "Miss Smith," she said, "I know this is an impossible request, but John has refused any character witnesses. He wants to accept the maximum penalty. The prosecution is using the hit and run, combined with his initial deception toward you and the center, to paint him as a manipulative monster. They're going to make an example of him."
She paused.
"As Michael's next of kin, you have the right to give a victim impact statement at the sentencing. To tell the court how this has affected you. To tell them who the man who did this really is." "I have nothing to say," I said, my voice hollow. Your silence will be a statement of its own, the lawyer replied gently. It will confirm their story. It will be the final word. After we hung up, I couldn't sit still. Her words echoed in my head. Your silence will be the final word. I thought of Javier, of his twisted, possessive rage. My silence would let his lie win. It would let the world believe that John was only the monster Javier tried to create. I thought of the board members, their sad, fearful faces. My silence would prove them right, that my story was too messy, too toxic for the place I built, that I was the problem. I put on a jacket and walked, my feet carrying me on a familiar path without any direction from my brain. I ended up across the street from Michael's place. The building was dark. The colorful banner the kids had painted was gone, taken down. The windows looked like dead eyes. The life, the light, the joy, it had all been ripped out. And it had been ripped out because of a story. A simple, ugly story that everyone had decided was true. That a bad man had killed a good man, and that was all there was to it. But I knew the truth was bigger, and messier, and so much more painful than that. I thought of Michael, not the saint everyone talked about now, but the real boy I grew up with. The boy who once found a bird with a broken wing and spent a whole summer nursing it back to health, only to cry for a week when it finally flew away. He didn't believe in throwing broken things away. He believed in mending them. Standing there in the cold, I finally understood.
This wasn't about John.
It wasn't about Javier.
It was about me.
It was about what I was going to do with my own broken life. Was I going to let other people's stories define me forever? Was I going to let my brother's legacy be a monument to anger and revenge? Or was I going to stand up and fight for the one thing I still believed in, the complicated, messy, beautiful truth? Courage wasn't something you felt. It was something you did when you were terrified. And I was terrified. But for the first time in a long time, I knew what I had to do. The day of the sentencing, the courthouse was a zoo. Reporters swarmed the steps like ants, shouting my name, shoving microphones in my face. I kept my eyes fixed on the stone doorway ahead and walked through the storm, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. Inside, the courtroom was packed. It was cold and silent and smelled of old paper and fear. I saw the board members from the center sitting in a row, their faces tight. I didn't see Javier. In the front, at a polished wooden table, sat John. He was thinner, his skin almost gray under the harsh lights. When he saw me walk in, his eyes widened. I saw a flicker of panic, of fear. He thought I was here to condemn him, to deliver the final blow. I gave him a small, almost invisible nod. His shoulders slumped, not in defeat, but in a wave of something I couldn't name. When they called my name, I walked to the podium. My hands were shaking so hard I had to grip the edges to keep them still. I looked at the judge, a man with a tired, stern face. I looked at the lawyers. I looked at the strangers watching me. Then I looked at John. My name is Priscilla Smith. I began, my voice clear and steady in the silent room. Michael Smith was my brother. For 5 years, I lived for one thing, to find the man who killed him and make him pay. I took a breath. And then I found him. His name is John Bernard. I paused, letting the weight of the words settle. And what I learned is that justice is not as simple as I wanted it to be. I told them everything. I told them about Eleanor, his dying sister in the car. I told them about his secret donations, the families he'd saved, the good he had poured into the world from his place of guilt and grief. And then I told them about Javier. I told them about my best friend, the man I trusted like a brother, and how he had seen the accident and kept it a secret for 5 years. I told them how he had manipulated me, how he lied about the police report, how he had twisted my grief into a weapon for his own jealousy. John Bernard made a terrible, unforgivable mistake, I said, my voice ringing with a strength I didn't know I had.
He panicked. He ran.
And he has to live with that, and he has to pay for that. But that one night is not the only thing he is. His guilt didn't turn him into a monster. It turned him into a philanthropist. It turned him into the man who funded the very community center that honors my brother. The story here is not simple. It is a tragedy with more than one victim. I turned my gaze from the judge to the board members. Michael's place was founded on the idea of second chances. My brother believed in it. I built it on that belief. And if we, as a community, cannot find it in ourselves to see the whole truth of a person, the good and the bad, the mistakes and the attempts to fix them, then that center is just a building. It has no soul. I took one last look at John. He was openly crying now, his face in his hands. He wasn't crying for himself. I knew, somehow, he was crying for all of us. For Michael, for Eleanor, for the wreckage of our lives. I don't know what justice for my brother looks like anymore. I finished, my voice softening. But I know it doesn't look like hate. And it doesn't look like revenge. I forgive John Bernard. Not for what he did, but for the man he has tried to become since. I walked back to my seat, my legs shaking. I had done it. I had spoken my truth. Whatever happened next, I was no longer a ghost in my own life. I was free. I didn't stay to hear the rest. My part was over. As I walked down the aisle, the silence in the courtroom was so complete it felt like a sound in itself. I didn't look at anyone, but I could feel their eyes on me. I felt the shame radiating from the row, where the board members sat. I felt the shock from the reporters who had come for a simple story and had been given a complicated truth. I kept walking, my head held high, my steps even. I pushed open the heavy courtroom doors and stepped out into the hallway, leaving the wreckage of my old life behind me. The noise of the crowd of journalists hit me like a wave, but for the first time, it didn't matter. Their questions, their cameras, their stories, they had no power over me anymore. I had just told my own. I was home, making a cup of tea, when the news broke. My phone, which I had turned back on, lit up with notifications. A friend sent me a link to a live news feed. I watched as a reporter stood on the courthouse steps, her voice filled with an excitement that made my stomach turn. The judge had delivered his sentence. John wasn't going to prison. The judge called it a sentence of restorative justice. He was given 5 years of mandatory, full-time community service. Every single hour of it was to be served at Michael's place. He was also ordered to place a massive sum of money into a blind trust, one that would fund the center and several other community programs in the city for the next 50 years. He was being forced to spend the rest of his productive life building, not breaking. He was being sentenced to honor my brother's life with his own. But that wasn't the part that made me drop my spoon. In a stunning and unprecedented move, the reporter said, her eyes wide, Judge Miller has also ordered the district attorney's office to open a criminal investigation into Javier Acosta, the sole witness in the case, for perjury and obstruction of justice. The judge stated that a lie that poisons a community is its own kind of crime. A picture of Javier flashed on the screen, a candid photo from the fundraiser, smiling and handsome and completely false. He had tried to use the justice system as his weapon, and it had turned on him. The lie he had nurtured for 5 years had finally grown teeth, and it had come back to bite him. I closed my laptop. It was over. All of it. 2 days later, Mr. Henderson and the entire board of directors were standing on my doorstep. They didn't look angry or disappointed anymore. They just looked tired and deeply ashamed. Mr. Henderson held a beat-up cardboard box in his hands. It was the box of things from my old office. "We were wrong, Priscilla," he said, his voice thick. "We were cowards. You stood up in that courtroom, and you spoke the truth, a truth that was harder than any of us could imagine. You showed us what Michael's legacy is really about. It's not about a building. It's about courage. It's about grace." Sarah, the woman who had told me I was in the way, had tears in her eyes. "The center isn't the same without you," she said. "It has no soul. Please, come home." Mr. Henderson held the box out to me. It was a peace offering, a surrender. I looked at their faces, these people who were my neighbors, my friends. They weren't perfect. They had made a mistake out of fear, and now they were trying to fix it. I took the box. It felt heavier than it should. "Okay," I said, and the word felt like a key turning in a lock I didn't know I was trapped behind. "Okay, I'll come home." When I walked back into Michael's place the next Monday, it felt different. The cloud that had been hanging over it was gone. The whispers had stopped. The parents and volunteers who had avoided my eyes now met my gaze with a look of awe and respect. The news of my testimony, of the judge's ruling, had swept through the neighborhood. I wasn't the grieving sister anymore. I wasn't the scorned lover. I was the woman who had told the truth. In saving myself from the lie, I had saved the center. My personal victory had become a victory for all of us. The kids swarmed me with hugs, their small arms a welcome weight. Little Maya gave me a drawing of a smiling sun. For the first time in a very long time, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. He showed up a week later. There was no announcement.
No fanfare.
I was helping a group of kids plant flowers in the new garden boxes out front when a simple work van pulled up to the curb. John got out. He wasn't wearing an expensive suit. He was wearing clean but simple work pants and a plain gray t-shirt. He looked different. The haunted look in his eyes was gone. In its place was a quiet humility, a sense of purpose. He wasn't a billionaire. He was just a man here to do a job. He walked over, stopping a few feet away, his hands in his pockets. The kids all stopped what they were doing and stared. They told me to report to the director, he said, his voice soft. He looked at me, a question in his eyes. I stood up, wiping the dirt from my hands onto my jeans. I'm the director, I said. A small, sad smile touched his lips. I know, he said. Priscilla, what you did in that courtroom, there are no words to thank you. You gave me a second chance I never thought I deserved. You haven't earned it yet, I replied, my voice gentle but firm. This is where it starts. The work is how you earn it. He nodded, his gaze unwavering. I know. I won't let you down. I won't let him down. He gestured toward the sign that bore my brother's name. I looked at him, really looked at him. I didn't see a monster. I didn't see a savior. I saw a man, broken and rebuilt, standing in the sunlight, ready to get his hands dirty. The love I felt for him was still there, a quiet, steady warmth beneath the surface. But it wasn't the desperate, grasping love of two broken people clinging to each other in the dark. It was something new, something patient, something that could wait.
Good, I said.
I pointed to a wheelbarrow full of mulch. You can start by helping Maya with the roses. She's very particular about them. He looked over at the little girl who was watching him with wide, curious eyes. A genuine, unburdened smile spread across his face. He walked over to her, knelt down so he was on her level, and said something that made her giggle. I watched them for a moment. The billionaire who killed my brother and the little girl whose rent he had secretly paid, working together under the warm sun. My heart, a thing I thought had been permanently shattered, felt a flicker of something I hadn't felt in years. It wasn't just hope. It was peace. The work wasn't finished. For him, for me, for all of us, it was just beginning. And that was more than enough. Months passed, not in a blur, but one deliberate day at a time. The seasons turned, and Michael's place turned with them. The garden we had planted grew wild with color. The children's laughter seemed to seep into the very walls, and the dark shadow that had haunted our halls slowly began to fade.
John was a part of that change.
He was the first to arrive every morning and the last to leave. He never gave orders. He only asked what needed to be done. I saw him on a ladder fixing a leaky roof in the rain. I saw him on his hands and knees, scrubbing graffiti off the basketball court. I saw him sit patiently with a boy who struggled to read, his deep voice a low, steady murmur in the quiet of the library. He never spoke of his old life. He never tried to use his money or his influence. He was just John, a man with a debt to pay, and he was paying it with the sweat of his brow and the calluses on his hands. We didn't talk about us. There was no us to talk about. We were two people working side by side, orbiting a shared center of gravity named Michael. It was a careful, fragile piece, and I was terrified of breaking it. The final piece of the past fell away on a gray Tuesday in October. A thin envelope was in my mailbox at home, with no return address. Inside was a newspaper clipping. The headline was small, buried in the back pages, "Local contractor sentenced for perjury." It was a short article. Javier had pleaded guilty. He was given 2 years probation and a fine. He had lost his contracting license. I read it once, then a second time. I felt no triumph, no satisfaction. Just a deep, hollow ache for the boy who had been my best friend, the man who had gotten so lost in his own twisted love that he'd set my world on fire just to see if I'd run to him. I folded the small piece of paper, dropped it into my kitchen trash can, and let him go. He was a ghost now, just like all the others. That night, I stayed late at the center, trying to finish the application for a new arts grant. The building was quiet, the air humming with a gentle buzz of the old fluorescent lights in my office. The door was open a crack, and I heard a soft knock on the frame. John stood there, his face smudged with dirt, a stray leaf in his hair. He'd been clearing the gutters all afternoon. He held up a wrench. "The drain pipe on the west side is clear," he said. "You shouldn't have any more trouble with that leak." "Thank you," I said, my voice softer than I intended. I motioned to the chair opposite my desk, the same one Javier had sat in all those months ago when he'd first warned me. John hesitated, then came in and sat down, his large frame looking out of place on the small visitor's chair. He looked exhausted, but it was a good kind of tired. The exhaustion that comes from a hard day's work, not a soul-crushing guilt. We sat in silence for a moment. It wasn't awkward. It was comfortable, worn in, like a conversation we'd been having for years. "You know," I said, leaning back in my squeaky chair, "Michael always hated cleaning the gutters. He said that's what younger sisters were for." A real smile touched my lips, the first one I'd shared with John that felt completely light. He smiled back, a small, tired curve of his lips. "My sister Eleanor said the same thing about spiders. She was convinced they were my responsibility." It was the first time he'd said her name since that day at his family's house. He said it easily, without the crushing weight that used to accompany it. We were learning to talk about our ghosts without letting them haunt us. "I heard about Javier," he said quietly, his eyes on his hands.
I'm sorry, Priscilla.
I know he was my friend. I finished for him, and he wasn't. It's complicated. I looked around my office, at the children's drawings taped to the wall, at the stacks of paperwork that represented so much hope. Everything is complicated. I used to think the world was simple, good guys and bad guys. But it's not. It's just people, doing their best and their worst, sometimes all in the same day. He finally looked up, his gaze so direct, so honest, it felt like it could see right into me. "I think about what you said in the courtroom every single day," he said, his voice low. "Justice doesn't look like hate." I didn't understand what it meant to really build something until I came here. All those checks I wrote, that was easy. That was just guilt. This, he gestured around the quiet building. This is hard. This is real. This is what it means to honor someone. He stood up, ready to leave, to give me my space as he always did. But I didn't want him to go. I had spent so long building walls, and now all I wanted was to tear the last one down. "John, wait," I said. He stopped, turning back to me. I stood up and walked around the desk until I was standing in front of him. He was so close I could feel the warmth coming off of him, could smell the scent of rain and autumn leaves that clung to his clothes. I reached out, not hesitating, and gently brushed the stray leaf from his hair. His breath hitched. My fingers lingered for a second against his skin. It wasn't a spark. It was a quiet click, like a final puzzle piece settling into place. I had forgiven him, but I hadn't forgiven myself for loving him. And I realized in that moment that I didn't have to. Love wasn't a reward for being perfect. It was a reason to be better. "The work isn't a punishment," I whispered, my eyes searching his. "Not anymore. I don't want it to be." His face, which had been so guarded, finally softened. The hope he'd been suppressing for months rose to the surface. "Priscilla," he breathed my name like a prayer. He didn't move, didn't dare to cross the final inch between us. He was leaving the choice entirely up to me. It was the greatest gift he could have possibly given me. I rose on my toes and kissed him. There was no desperation, no sadness, no fear. It was a kiss of profound and absolute certainty. It was quiet and it was sure, a promise made without a single word. It tasted of homecoming. When I pulled away, I rested my forehead against his. "We have a long way to go," I said. He wrapped his arms around me, holding me like I was something precious, something he would spend the rest of his life protecting. "I know," he murmured into my hair, "but for the first time, we're walking in the same direction." What did this story teach you about forgiveness? Drop your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more stories that will change how you see the world.